anything or anyone that is attempting to detract from who he is and what he has done is A, wrong, because he's doing the best that he can, and B, it might even be in Tenzin's head. He might be making these things up about himself not being good enough. And with that, a lot of times comes this pressure to perform. You want to represent your group well because you know that, well, I'm the only one here like that, and that means they're going to be looking at me different. In so many words, Aang tells him, you know, that's your problem. You're not me, and you can never be me. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, and over here we discuss life topics by analyzing characters from popular TV and film. So today we are talking about Tenzin from the Legend of Korra, and our topic is dealing with stress, the pressure to perform, and feeling like the sole representative of your group. How to deal with all of those things. So let's get into it. Tenzin is pretty much my favorite character from the Legend of Korra. Even when I first watched the show as a kid, I really loved him. The stressed dad vibes, I could tell he was just trying as hard as he could. And I love that kind of compassionate father figure character that's just trying to figure things out, trying to get it right. And that's exactly what Tenzin is. I think he's a very lovable character. Really, his whole family, in my opinion, are the stars of that show. But Tenzin is the son of Katara and Aang, and the only airbender offspring of those two. He's got two siblings, Bumi and Kaya, one a waterbender, one a non-bender, for a time, leaving him and Aang the last airbenders. As he became an adult, he had his own family, and now he has 3 airbending children. That's who he is. But one of the first things you notice about Tenzin when you're watching the show is he just seems very stressed. He seems to have a lot on his plate, and he is trying very hard to be a lot of things to a lot of people. You can see it in his face, you can hear it in his voice, and just the way that he carries himself. He's a little bit stiff, but it seems as though it's in an effort to just get things right. He wants things right. And it seems like he puts a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on himself trying to get things right. And Tenzin really is so many different things to so many different people in the series. He is a husband to Pema. He is a father of 3 very active airbending children. He is on the city council. He is training Korra, or attempting to train Korra. Y'all know how headstrong Korra is, specifically earlier on in the show. So he's attempting to train Korra in airbending and just general avatar training. And on top of all of this, he and his family are the last airbenders. He's carrying the mantle of air nomad and airbender culture on his back. And we can imagine how he must feel, particularly as one of the last airbenders. Tenzin was raised, of course, by Katara and Aang, but even though he's been tasked with this huge responsibility of kind of being the legacy of Aang, legacy of airbenders, he really only had Aang himself to teach him about air nomad culture. You have to remember also that Aang really only had 12 years to learn about air nomad culture. So Tenzin is relying on one person, not getting the full context of any community, get a fuller context of what it means to be an airbender and air nomad as far as the culture is concerned. He just had Aang to kind of train him and tell him how it was supposed to be. So we can understand there's but so much that he can actually represent, being the amount of limited training he's had in this culture. And as an adult, he has embraced this responsibility, this legacy task completely, and he feels as though he is the sole person responsible for maintaining and keeping intact air nomad culture. And I'm sure in turn he feels like everyone has their eyes on him and his family to illustrate what it is supposed to mean to be an airbender, being that there's no one else to look at. They are the airbending family. They live on Air Temple Island. People look to this family, and in particular Tenzin, for guidance, for reference on anything airbender. That's a lot of responsibility. So in addition to all of these actual roles that he has taken on, he also has this underlying foundational stressor of being the sole representative of his group. But I would imagine that a lot of us can relate to this feeling that Tenzin is having, maybe not to this degree, this is a cartoon and animation and y'all know how they exaggerate stories, but to some degree I'm sure we can all understand this particular position that he's in, where you are maybe being all of these things to all of these different people, and people are expecting great things from you, and you are just trying to keep it all together. This is stressing you out. This amount of stress that we put on ourselves or that other people put on us can take a great toll on our bodies and our minds. So, like I normally do, what I want to give you guys today are 3 tips, 3 tricks that you can use to deal with the topic at hand, which is stress and the pressure to perform. Number 1 is to always do your best and let the rest go. Regrets and disappointments in our lives come in when we feel like we could have done better, made better choices, and we didn't. But if you're always putting your best foot forward, you're always trying your best, you're always giving everything that matters, the right amount of energy, time, input, then there is no room left for regrets. Understand that there are no true judges in this life. There's really no one or no group that can come up to you and tell you that you are not where you need to be, because we are the ones that allow people in our lives to judge and to critique. So if someone is doing those things, then you are giving them the power to do those things. If you know that you put your best foot forward, if you know you put your best work out there, and someone comes in and tries to demote you, tries to take away what you've done, they actually do not have the power to do this unless you allow them to come in and do it. So don't allow that. You are the one that has the final say-so about what you choose to do and how you choose to measure what you do. You set the parameters around that, not other folks. So let's look at Tenzin for a minute. I just went over all of the roles that he played, all the things that he does for the people around him. Now, Tenzin tried his best and put his best foot forward in every avenue. We knew that he was a great family man, as he had a loving wife and children who adored him and respected him. So he was a great dad. We know that he was a trusted and respected member of the city council, so he must have been doing something right. We know that he always made it to the meetings, and even if they disagreed with him, he was still like this pillar of strength in that council. We know that he did his best to train Korra, and while she maybe didn't acknowledge that too much in the beginning, y'all know Korra, she even eventually came around and thanked him for his wisdom and his patience with her in training. Also, he is the go-to for anything airbending. If anyone needs any information on such a thing, they know that they can go to Tenzin, because they know that Tenzin has done his homework. Tenzin has done his research. Tenzin is the guru that he claims to be, because he has put in that much work. So he puts his best out constantly. And because we know that, we can also understand that anything or anyone that is attempting to detract from who he is and what he has done is A, wrong, because he's doing the best that he can, and B, it might even be in Tenzin's head. He might be making these things up about himself not being good enough, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. I think a lot of us do that. We are doing fine, we are doing what we can, and then we start looking at ourselves and second guessing ourselves, getting inside our own heads and judging ourselves just a little too harshly, which adds unnecessary stress, unnecessary pressure and anxiety to our already demanding lives. And it's something that's going on, or that can be happening in your own head. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. So when you know you have done what you can, you have given something your all, be proud of what you've done. Don't let anyone tell you any different, and keep it moving until you're able to do even better the next time. Number 2 is to stop trying to be who people want you to be. A lot of times, and this can come from anywhere, your parents, your friends, family members, light acquaintances, it can come from so many places. But sometimes I think we get this idea that we are supposed to be a certain type of person or a certain person, about where we're supposed to be in life by this time, by this age, and we add unnecessary stress to ourselves without realizing that everyone has their own destiny, if you will, and a specific timeline. And a lot of times we really buy into this, and then we start feeling guilty and bad and ashamed of our accomplishments. But we are not put on the earth to satisfy someone else's idea of who we are supposed to be. That is for us to determine. We mark our own paths, and to a large extent, we determine who we're going to be and how we're going to get there. That is not someone else's decision to make. It is yours, and it's your responsibility to craft that in the way that you best see fit. Not in a way that is super reminiscent of someone else, or you're just following someone else's path super duper close, but you're not them though. So what is good for them, what works for them, what looks good on them, what looks good for them may not even suit you, but here you are chasing something that isn't even good for you. If you guys recall the episode in, I believe, season 2, where Tenzin and his siblings have gone to find Nora in the spirit world, they get caught up in the chasm of lost souls. I'm not sure what it's called. I totally just made that up. But the place where all the mist is, and they are kind of taken by their own thoughts. And Kaya and Bumi get separated from Tenzin, and Tenzin is wandering around down there. And doing so, he runs into a vision of Aang. He immediately begins to apologize to Aang. He's feeling really down on himself, insulting himself, and saying how he is just not the person that he thinks Aang has wanted him to be. And in so many words, Aang tells him, you know, that's your problem. You're not me, and you can never be me. No, you could never be me. So stop trying. And this really freed up Tenzin's mind and his spirit. He began to realize that he was not Aang. He's not just Aang's son, the Avatar's son, the last Airbender, all of these monikers that he'd had put on him just by being the son of Aang. He was going to have to determine some things for himself. He was going to have to figure out an identity of his own, mark his own path. And this frees him up. This releases him and allows him to escape this chasm of lost souls. And there are times when we're going to need to come to that same realization. We might have to have an I am Tenzin moment. Just as he did, to free our minds from such pressures. Number 3, kind of concerning the topic of feeling like the sole representative of your group. And this can come in many forms. Maybe you are at a school or a job where you are the only one of a certain race or culture or a certain identity that's maybe not the norm, maybe not fully accepted or praised. And maybe just generally speaking, you feel like an outcast or an outsider in some setting. And with that, a lot of times comes this pressure to perform. You want to represent your group well because you know that, well, I'm the only one here like that, and that means they're going to be looking at me different, and I'm going to be representing my particular group. It puts a lot of stress on your body and on your mind. But we have to come to a point where we realize that other people's lack of exposure to your culture, to your group, to the information surrounding your people is not a reflection of you, but it is instead a reflection of them. So don't let them put you in a box or make you feel like you're the odd one out, like you're doing something wrong, when they are not even interested enough to do the research, to take the time to find out more about you and your group, to come to an actual understanding of who you are. This is their issue. If they have a problem with who you are, that's on them. If they are not understanding, they just don't get you, that's on them. Because we have the internet, we have books, we have tons of information out there for people to go grab if they were really interested in learning about you, as opposed to getting up in your face and pretending that you make them uncomfortable, okay? And it's not your problem to fix. Like I said, this is on them. And I want to really point that out, that it's not your issue to fix, because a lot of times that's how we get the people who are like,
well, I'm a special type of person from this group. I'm not really like them over there. I'm different.
Type rhetoric is because they're trying to distinguish themselves from a certain narrative that's being spread about their group, as opposed to realizing that if someone is sitting here and basing their entire outlook on a whole group, a whole culture, a whole race, a whole ethnicity, a whole whatever of people based on their interactions with 1, 2, 10, 20 people, or what they see on a specific platform or whatever it is, they're basing their entire opinion of that group on the few then that is a personal problem, and you don't feel the need to prove them wrong. And once you realize that, you can take yourself out of this performance wind-up toy box that we put ourselves in, and we allow other people to put us in as well. If we look at Tenzin, season 3, when the new airbenders came about, he took them to the air temple to begin studying and finding out more about air nomadic culture. He was there to train them, and they were just not really understanding where Tenzin was coming from. They thought he was talking too much history, too much this, too much that. It was just not what they thought it was going to be, and this really irritated Tenzin. He just wanted them to understand him, and he wanted them to immediately understand air nomad culture. He wanted them immediately to understand the practices of the airbenders. And he didn't really understand that there's an adjustment period when dealing with different types of people. And we do have to give some people a little bit of grace and a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to things that they don't understand. There's a learning curve, and that's just how it's going to be when different groups are now spending more and more time with one another. So Tenzin came to a resolution with that when he began to realize it wasn't so much about what he was saying to them and trying to prove to them and trying to yell and get them to understand his culture, and that wasn't effective. But what was effective was them seeing the way that he carried himself, them being able to do the research for themselves, them being able to see that particular culture, those particular practices in practice, in action. And I think the same thing is true with us. I think sometimes we get in the defensive mode where we get to a point where we're trying to prove ourselves to other people. We're trying to prove to people that we're worthy of love, attention, basic human treatment. We're trying to prove those things. We're trying to prove that we're cool. We're trying to prove that we can be this way too, just like you, and all of these things. And it is not effective. So the sooner you realize that you don't have to ask for permission to exist in any space, you can just go there, and if people don't like it, well, they'll just not like it, and that'll be that. But you have a right to any space within reason. If they say no, this allowed, don't go. Just generally speaking, y'all know, don't get crazy. But generally speaking, if you have access to the space, then you have access to the space. Don't put any parameters on yourself about how you're going to navigate that space and all of this stuff. It's not your responsibility to make sure everyone else understands why you're there. You're just there because that's where you want to be, and leave it at that. And in Tenzin's case, it wasn't his job to prove to each and every one of those new airbenders why they needed to learn every single part of the culture. It was more so up to him to show them what it means to be an airbender, and how they even came to that point as a culture to be air nomads. It's not your job to make sure everyone else around you is fully understanding you and fully understanding everything that it is that you represent. That's a lot to ask of any person, and when you can release yourself from that, you take a lot of stress and pressure off, and it frees you up to be more of yourself, which is actually more effective in winning people over to your side than a person that is trying to prove themselves, because that's very obvious to people. People can nearly smell that on a person that,
hi, my name is trying to fit in. Will you be my friend?
People can sense that on you. You may not say it like that, but people can sense that. So do your best to avoid that. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you'd like to be alerted when I post new videos. The question that I want you guys to answer in the comments below is, what small ways do you all deal with stress? Let us know in the comments below if you like, and I will see you guys in the next video.